What's going on, everybody? And on here, and with all the noise in the market, the noise on YouTube, everybody, kind of looking at sensory overload. I want to do a video on kind of resetting mindsets on Pokemon, whether you call it investing, collecting. I really don't really care about the speculating aspect, but it's really easy to get caught up in an echo chamber or get caught up in emotion, or you watch too many different YouTube channels where you have to understand there's just clickbaity titles about things crashing. So I want to go back to the data and really take this back to the root of why we do this. Now, if you buy the cards to play, you buy the cards to collect because you think it's a toy or whatever, that's fine. That's not why I do it. But let's go back to, and I want to kind of start. We're going to start with SV. We're going to go back to Sword and Shield and then Sun and Moon. So this is a spreadsheet I've used just kind of to identify sets that are undervalued versus the booster box price. I've kind of retooled this to kind of back into what does the return on each one of these sets look like. And the basis of this is we buy booster boxes and sealed product to diversify against singles risk. And as all of us know, singles go up, singles go down. There's packs opened every day, more so now with rip and shippers. You have the playability aspect and rotations out that, quite honestly, I don't pay any attention to whatsoever outside of the set name. So there's all kinds of mechanics that are working against us when it comes to singles. So if we own sealed product and booster boxes, ETBs, booster bundles, those are all, I don't want to say they're all on par because they're not, but they're all high quality assets to own. Obviously, Pokemon Center ETBs as well. It helps us hedge our bets against the movement of singles within the set. In addition, it gives us a premium that has been in the market for almost 30 years now. And again, the reason we're all in this is because Pokemon is something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. Everything goes up all the time. And I'm actually scaring the crap out of myself saying that. But it's basically like having an annuity from an asset perspective without an actual cash flow. So, I have a side business. It does $800,000 a year profit, and the checks come in like clockwork. So, I kind of look at that as Pokemon, where if I take that money, I put it in the stock market, I get one thing. I put it in Pokemon, I get another thing. But the goal is to diversify, because if the game itself and all of the sets go up over time, they're all going to go up in disparate amounts and values. So there's two key variables here, in my opinion, and I'm going to ramble a little bit here. Hopefully, it makes sense. The first of all, the first one is your entry point. So obviously, the lower the entry point, the better off you are long term. Now, right now, everybody's pretty much fucked because the entry point for boxes is, pretty much at all-time highs. Now, some people are able to buy at MSRP, a box, two boxes here and there. But if we're talking putting away 10 cases, 20 cases, 30 cases, that's a tough one right now for folks that don't have access to distribution, who don't have a strong relationship with one or two multiple LGSs, or aren't in wholesale programs. So the second most important item being the length of hold. And I'll get to this at the very end. The hold period is the most important part, because what we're going to see here, and again, this is taking the current day noise that it's going to be reprinted or it's not, or blah, 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 and pushing this out 7-8 years. And what happens is the returns start to magnify. based on what we're seeing over 1 years, 2 years, even 3 or 4 years. So let's start with Destined. And again, I'm just going to say the buy price is MSRP. For most folks here, it's not. And the MSRP here also doesn't include tax. So you're probably looking at 166 ish, depending on your state. But let's look at the different returns. And this is just simply the box price minus the buy price divided by the buy price. So it's your effective return. And again, it's it's not a very long, so it looks great. You have Journey at 30, surging at 90, and again this 120 and 110. Yes, you could have gotten it less than that if you bought super early. You could have gotten it more than that if you bought it after the fact. This is just kind of representative of the overall concept. So there's no math magic here. There's no timing per se. This is just kind of illustrative of this is why I do what I do and what I do and the way I think about things. And, I'm just trying to help folks get away from the noise because, again, at the end of the day, entry point and time in the market matters. I'm going to look at it right here. So, you have these points here. Stellar 79%, Twilight 160 going nuts, Temporal 100%, Paradox 110, Obsidian 144, Paldea Evolve 255. And then SV base is basically double since March of 2023. So we're 2 years and 3 months. So 27 months. But if we go to the overall average, the average for SV base, it's 1.2 years old. Average box price is 241. Average buy price is 120. Just kind of an ass pull. So you're 101% return. So basically double your money. And this is something I threw in here because I think it's important to understand per year what your return is. Just kind of, annualized, if you will. So let's kind of put a pin in SV in Scarlet and Violet, but it's important to see that there's a variety of different returns, and Paldea Evolved being the biggest gainer by far right now, and Twilight could get there, may not get there, who knows. When the set came out for the first year and a half, everybody shit all over it. So when we go to Sword and Shield, we're going to look at Vivid Voltage, which came out at like $200. Everybody was, pounding their chest saying it's the next best thing, and the second coming of Christ and shit like that. People don't know what sets to pick. So getting back to the original concept, I invest in booster boxes. We'll just call it that, because I don't know what singles to pick. I don't give a shit what singles to pick, and why would I take that risk? The reason I'm in Pokemon is because it goes up. So what I want to do is I want to minimize my downside, and I want to maximize my upside. And I don't want to have to pick winners. I want to be as lazy as friggin' possible and win. So people shit all over Paldea Evolve for a year and a half, and it ended up so far being the biggest winner of the era. Now, there's not really any losers because we're in this weird period where, rising tide lifts all boats. But if we go back to the Sword and Shield era, and again, I do want to note that there's different returns on all these products. You look at Battle Styles and Vivid, two big time sets that, yes, they got printed into the ground, but they've only recovered a little bit. And, yes, buy price, you could have gotten in much lower than 143. You could have gotten in much higher, but we're just going to baseline this and call it what it is. People shit all over Sword and Shield base. It's a terrible set, but the booster boxes are at $600 again with tax. So, this just goes to show you have the value of the cards in the set, which we're isolating because we're buying the whole set effectively, the whole set plus a gambler's premium plus a sealed premium. With Sword and Shield, the card value premium or the card value, and the gambler's premium is effectively nothing. So the entire value of the box is the sealed premium and the fact that it's an artifact. It doesn't freaking exist anywhere because they didn't reprint it. Now, what we don't know in SV is, given the absolute skyrocketing of demand in Pokemon over the last year, it's been a year, holy crap. What are they not going to reprint? Are they going to bypass Obsidian Paradox Temporal and reprint the crap out of Paldea? No idea. Are they going to not reprint any of it and focus on Surging and Destin and going forward on the specialty sets? We don't know. So anybody who tells you buy this, buy that, unless they're talking about the fact that it is a superior entry point, like Shrouded Fable, for example. People hate the set, but the entry point is so much better than everything else in the market right now, relatively. And, not talking about older sets, really just talking about SV base. People, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about because nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. If every set gets reprinted except for Temporal Forces is probably $1,000 booster box before almost anything else here does. And it's just because of the fact that it's going to be super rare and people are going to want it. It's just, it's so weird, and there's so many variables that none of us have control over. What you do is you just buy every single set and you let it set to the side and you let it do your work for you. So I kind of set it akin to, everybody has friends, relatives who buy individual stocks, right? Nothing wrong with that. And they're always talking about their best stock and how they crushed it and this and that. But for every stock that does that, they probably have 3 or 4 others that are just kind of sitting there mulling around and underperforming the S&P. That's why most financial experts say, just look, buy the S&P 500, buy the index fund, and just let it ride, because you participate in the market as the cash flows come in, the price goes up, and inflation impacts the market as a whole. So you are avoiding risk across all of the different facets that could screw you financially. Now it's a similar concept with Pokemon, but it's slightly different from the perspective that there's no cash flows. There's no real tangible value here other than the fact that it's the biggest IP in the world. And for it to go away, something that hasn't happened in the last 3 decades, that is certainly not imminent because it's at its peak right now, or its all-time high, would have to happen. So that being said, let's get back to this. So let's go down and let's look at Sword and Shield. So average buy-in price is $100. I mean, it might be 80, might be 120. It depends on when you got into it, right? But you're at 4 years. The average box price is $539, obviously skewed upwards by Evolving Skies. But, a lot of other sets, Fusion, Lost Origins, has Sword and Shield base starting to catch up. So, 439% over 4 years, which is fucking phenomenal. So 1.1 times your money. So really every year. And I know the math isn't perfect. I'm not multiplying on multiplying. This is just a simple how much per year, right? So let's go to Sun and Moon. So Sun and Moon, and again, I was super lazy with pulling these. I actually pulled the TCG market price, unless the lowest listed was above that, then I plugged that in. So, older folks, don't crucify me. Again, this is illustrative. This is not meant to be precision accuracy. But you look at the average Sun and Moon set, 7 years old. Average box price, $1,600. Average buy price, 85. It could be 75, maybe a little bit less. Stirred up 1,750%. So now you're at 2.5 times your money per year. And again, I'll show you the math. It is not perfect, but it is close to fuck enough for government work. So it's not like you're doubling. You're basically making 1x your money. Or 2.5x your original investment every year. So, um, what this shows you is A, you need to buy products across all sets. Nobody knows what a set's going to do. Nobody knows what Pokemon's going to do. Nobody knows what the impact's going to be. Anybody who says otherwise is full of shit. Vivid Voltage. I'm pretty sure that $213 is not the all-time high for this. In fact, the all-time high for this was probably in 2021. Um, so it's been dead money from the start, unless you could buy it from Pokemon Center, which you could. I mean, I have 4 cases sitting here. So Destined Rivals could very well be the best set from a public perception standpoint of SV, but Temporal or Stellar or Shrouded Fable could be the best performing sets due to lack of supply over time. And the thing that I think people underestimate is the amount of production of these items over time is trending up because the IP is growing. So as the IP grows, people look at this as, and they play the game, and obviously that's growing, but they look at this as a toy, and they're like, you know what, Pokemon cards are cool. I'm going to buy some. In addition, we have this whole new wave, and I think this is what's interesting is we have this magnifying effect, right? So fewer people were into Pokemon here than Sword and Shield, where you really had the rip and ship start to kick in. SV, the rip and ships go nuts, but you're also getting a lot more noise and interest from the investing fan base. Folks that are like, you know what, this is an alternative investment. It makes a lot of sense. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to throw it in the corner, and we're going to see what happens. So I think the effect of a lot of this stuff is magnified. I think that's what we're seeing in the booster box price here, which we didn't see in Sword and Shield up until recently, until everything was out of print. So as we see the Scarlet Violet set go out of print in the first 4.5 sets rotate out in April, I think people are going to be in for a rude awakening, because I think the sets are going to go absolutely batshit crazy, assuming we're still in bull market. If we swing to a bear market, it's just going to be consolidation for 18 months, whatever. And again, nobody knows, the odds of that happening with 30th anniversary, these rotating out right after it. It's a crapshoot, right? So in summary, if you're buying singles to play, buying singles because you like them, you collect them, that's cool. You do you. If you're sitting here saying, this set sucks, this set's good, I'm only buying this set, you're putting yourself at risk if you're looking at this from a maximizing financial potential and minimizing financial risk perspective, because you don't fucking know. You have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. Nobody does, because all of this is a function of what's going to happen in the future, what's going to happen with the Pokemon Company reprinting stuff, and 15 different ancillary risk factors that we just don't know right now because enough time hasn't passed. These products haven't baked in the market. And then, the third item is the hold period matters, because as you hold product longer, the returns start to multiply, because A, a lot of product disappears, and B, you have more people coming into the industry, coming into the market, who are starting to buy backwards, and they want to build positions and they want to own it. There's I shouldn't say there's nothing cooler, because there's a million things cooler than having a wall of ETBs and booster boxes and cases. But it looks nice. So I'll leave you guys with that. So anyway, wanted to kind of do a reset here, talk about forest from the trees. There's so much noise out there. It's not worth the brain drain. Don't get caught up. We do this because we know what's going to happen, because it's always happened. And to say this time it's different is no different than in Wall Street. People during COVID said that this time it's different. The market's going to get smashed. When, 2 months ago with the tariffs, this time it's different. Everybody's going to get smashed. The market's at an all-time high. you buy the fucking dip, you shut your mouth, and you just smile and you make money. And that's it. So, all right, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord, and have a great night.